As the video illustrated, the development of agriculture forever altered the trajectory of human civilization. Once people became attached to specific places and fixed their survival to the planned acquisition of goods through trade, agriculture, or tribute, institutions were required to safeguard those supplies. Thus, humans developed civic, military, and religious organizations, groups of specialists charged with preserving the cultural and economic norms of their societies. People to ensure that the systems everyone depended on continued for future generations. These specialists could enforce property laws, maintain social and familial order through marriage and inheritance, defend the populace from outward attack, acquire and ensure the blessings of the gods, and maintain literacy in a given specific language through successive generations. Agricultural surplus and steady, secure contact between agricultural centers led to greater exchange of goods and ideas. However, for all the benefits of an agricultural society, the system has some long-term consequences. Today, I want to outline how river-based irrigation agriculture gradually creates a small number of wealthy landowners and a gradually increasing number of dependent persons. Generally speaking, the first settlers to farm along rivers select the best sites. As institutions form and population grows, elites, often from among those same first settler families, manage to acquire sites almost as good along the river or newly created irrigation ditches. The other farmers stretch increasingly further from the rich soil of the river valley or the irrigation levees, usually in clusters. I want to stress that the quality of land and its production does not vary a great deal from the richest area to the poorer ones in most years. There may not even be a clear visible difference between most, except for the places with direct river access. However, in the ancient period, the stronger families retained their land for centuries. So a mere 5% greater yield each year turns into a substantial amount of profit over 400 years. There are other effects as well. Floods could wipe out an entire crop, but the families that were able to secure a greater surplus on normal years were more likely to survive single-year disasters. Droughts were another type. In these times, it was likely that farmers further away from the river suffered more damage than those closer to water. Most people in these early societies had two assets: their bodies and land. In times of disaster, those who were unable to set back a surplus, i.e. those further away from the river with less fertile, secure lands, were faced with losing their lands, selling family members as slaves, or borrowing from those who could lend. In all of these cases, it was most likely that the people with money to loan, money to buy lands, or buy slaves were those who had the better land and had established consistent years of surplus. Over time, these landed elites acquired ever more land, which gave them a greater surplus, which in turn allowed them a greater chance of acquiring more. Those who owned less fertile lands were constantly struggling to maintain ownership without going under. Those who lost their land were increasingly reliant upon the wealth and support of the elites. Note that this was a gradual, centuries-long process and had little to do with the intent or morality of either group. Poor farmers could fail with an extremely fertile land, but unless they did so at a very early stage, the rich could still survive a generation of mismanagement because they had more land to exploit. This type of system was very influential in early river-based civilizations, and most of their nobility were formed due to agricultural wealth. They were these landed elites.